Hey guys, this is Dan with Gears and Gadgets. Thanks for tuning in. So as some of you may not know, I just bought a 2021 Ford F-150 that I've been doing a lot of content with on this channel. Well, recently, Toyota announced their new Tundra and GMC announced the new 2022 GMC Sierra. So I started coming up with this video about whether or not I regretted my 21 F-150. And in the meantime, I've actually started having some significant issues with my 2021. Most of those issues are related to computer modules. The dealership actually has a new one on order with no ETA, and it's really driving me crazy because the Sync 4 system, which is typically awesome, has just started fading to black, and then if I hit the dimming switch where I adjust the brightness of the screen, it'll bring it back up, and then it'll dim back down again. A lot of really weird issues. I'm also not super happy with some of the over-the-air updates that have seemingly not been happening. I think there's a lot of room for improvement, but that's a different video. With this video, I wanted to talk about the Tundra and the GMC Sierra. A lot of people had kind of given me a little bit of grief that I didn't wait for these new announcements, but I was just kind of in a point where it was time for me to get a new truck, and if I'm always waiting for the next thing, I'm never getting anything, and it was just time for me to get a new truck. So I did want to revisit this because there are some pretty significant announcements. Now I can already hear all of the keys clacking with the you should have bought a Ram, you should have bought a Chevy, a GMC, a Toyota, all of the people out there that are going to have their brand favorite. I was never a Ford fan. The new F-150 just kind of spoke to me. The work surface was actually the first thing that I thought, that's pretty genius. I used a ton of it. It's awesome. And then the Powerboost. Those were the things that really got me sold. And then I started looking at the 7.2 kilowatt hour battery and the benefits of having a generator, more for, I guess, like the prepper in me, just having something there to power in the case of an emergency. Also, the interior really sold me. But some of the other trucks I wanted to talk about that I can't go without mentioning before I get into the Tundra and the Sierra, which are the two main ones I wanted to talk about, is the F-150 Lightning. A lot of people know that I put one on order and then kind of quickly canceled it. That was more just a gut reaction to put the deposit down because I thought it was something I might be interested in, but I'm just not ready to go full EV yet. I really don't totally trust the grid capability at this point. There's rolling brownouts through California. Arizona's going through a massive growth spurt right now, and there's conversation about if we have enough power to supply that growth and that demand. I'm still kind of trying to weigh that out for the future. And if I had solar, that would be a different conversation where I could charge it off of the power that I was producing myself, but I don't have solar and I'm just not really there yet. That's my reason for not buying not just the Lightning, but any fully electric vehicle at this point in time. But it's inevitable. The day is coming where that will happen. Now, the F-150 Tremor is another one that I should include in this video. And that was actually a very interesting potential option. When I first placed my Powerboost custom order, the Tremor was announced shortly after that, and the specs are awesome. However, I started looking at it, and it's like, well, if I'm going to go with that off-road, I either wanted the Powerboost or I wanted the full V8, and they only offer that Tremor in the twin-turbo V6, which is an awesome engine. I love it, but it was just one of those things where that isn't the power plant that I want in that vehicle. And not to mention, it's $69,000 the way that I would option it up. And I just figured by the time you're spending 70 grand, you might as well go with the Raptor. I started looking at the Raptor, and that's where they have the twin turbo V6, but it's the high output version. That is significantly different from the 3.5 liter they have in the regular Tremor. And it's also tuned differently. They have the exhaust that sounds awesome in my opinion. And I almost went that route, but then my dealer wanted an extra $15,000 over MSRP. And I'm just not willing to spend over MSRP. I don't see it as a reasonable thing to do. I think the value of today's Raptor is going to be significantly hurt when the V8 Raptor comes out. But I personally, as a daily driver, would much prefer the twin turbo V6 high output. It's just a better daily driver, in my opinion, for fuel economy play. Also the same reason why I would not go with a TRX, because of fuel economy. So now on to the Toyota Tundra that just got announced. That is a truck that has been highly anticipated, rightfully so. The current or outgoing Tundra was very long in the tooth, and Toyotas are great. I don't like the new Tundra. I'm not afraid to say it. I know a lot of people out there are going to love it. That's fine. It's all subjective. But some of the things that I really don't like, for some reason, the rear taillights on that Tundra kind of look like saggy boobs. They're just kind of sitting too low on the back of the truck. It's what I see. I know a lot of people probably won't agree. That's fine. And the grill. It's almost like they just took the grill and then said, okay, build a truck around this grill. It's just too big. It's too much of a focal point. But then to give it, I guess it's due with the things that I did think Toyota did very well. I think the headlights look awesome. I think the interior is best in class. It's right there. Honestly, at this point, I think all of the interiors are punching above where they need to. I don't really know if I prefer any of them over the other one, to be honest with you. I think they all have their pros and cons, but are all great. So with all that subjective stuff out of the way, the things that I think Toyota really missed the mark on is the hybrid. They did not put any sort of generator mode to compete with Ford. Now, I'm not really a big user of that generator, but I paid the money for it. I bought the truck, and at some point I might like to buy a camper. I like the idea in the case of an emergency that I can use my truck to power portions of the house if need be. I think it's just it's a selling feature, and they don't have it. They should have. The other thing that's questionable with this EV is Toyota over the years has phased all of their EVs over to lithium-ion batteries. So they used to be nickel hydride. Now they roll out this new Tundra with what I consider, and I think what the market is going to consider, old tech. Now, they have plenty of marketing speak as to why they did it that way. I don't know. I just don't think it was a good move. I think it's old battery technology. Don't doubt that changes over to lithium in the next year model. It just doesn't make sense to me. Another big deal is they don't have 4Auto in that transfer case. That's a pretty big deal, to be honest with you, because most of the time when you're going to go to a four-wheel drive type scenario where you're driving on the streets in snow, even in some very light off-roading, I look at it this way, is that anytime I need to use four-wheel drive, it's better to put it into auto, because if you get to a point where you're in two-wheel drive and then you realize you need four-wheel drive, you've already buried yourself. So I find it to be something that I find a lot of comfort in that 4Auto, and I think people who are doing modest off-roading would tend to agree with that as well. And then another big selling point that they don't have is no real self-driving features, which Ford and GM are going to have in their vehicles, and Toyota at this point does not have that. So I think the Tundra is still kind of lagging behind in terms of tech compared to the rest of the market. But that roll-down rear window, that's fire. They have that on lock. And that is a feature that I think is absolutely awesome. Every time I see somebody with their Tundra with the rear window rolled down, I am jealous. So they have that. So ultimately, no, I'm not regretting buying my Ford F-150 over waiting for a Tundra, not even in the slightest bit. Now, the vehicle that I am a little bit, possibly considering that I might have missed the boat on, that is the 2022 GMC Sierra AT4X. Now, I kind of wince when I say that because in all reality, I probably only would need the AT4. However, that AT4X package to me is very interesting because I think that is your best all-around modest off-roading daily driver compared to a Raptor, compared to a TRX, compared to a Tremor. I think the GMC Sierra AT4X absolutely killed it. Now, for me, this would be a little bit kind of like going back and marrying your ex-wife and thinking that maybe things might be different, because I did not have a great relationship with my outgoing 2015 GMC Sierra. But with that being said, I also am to the point where I've seen enough, I've heard enough. Everybody has their horror stories and everybody has their hero stories. Sometimes with vehicles, and it's kind of sad to say, but it can kind of be luck of the draw. And I'm going through some issues with my Ford right now, so it's just, again, luck of the draw. So I am not to the point where I would never go back to GMC. Looking at this new AT4X, it's a beautiful truck. I mean, it really is. I think that what they did to the interior in these GMCs is like the perfect mix of refinement and youth. I think it's really just a great product. We'll have to see how some of those materials feel, but some of that wood grain stuff, I mean, it looks great. I also think that the front end is now a perfect combination of bold and classy, which I think is a very fine line to walk, where you look at the new Tundra and it's just straight up bold, and then they kind of wrap some chrome around it, like class it up a little bit. And I think that GM with the Sierra just absolutely killed it in terms of really nailing that balance. Getting into the off-road chops of that truck, forget about it. You've got those Multimatic DSSV shocks that have performed absolutely, I mean, rave reviews on the Chevy Colorado. It's just awesome that they brought that to a full-size truck. I think that thing's just going to kill it on and off-road because it has the adjustability to do both well. The front and rear electric lockers, that is also just a huge thing for off-road. Now, getting into daily driving that thing, it is going to be a 6.2 liter V8. It's also got a lift. It's got some bigger tires. I don't expect it to get great gas mileage. However, this is where I talk about daily driving that truck. I would think that the AT4X is probably going to pull, on average, 14 to 15, somewhere in that range. It's still not great, but I would probably daily it. So it's right at that line, and I do think that that truck will average about 15 in the way that I drive. So I don't doubt on the highway it might push a little bit higher than that. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes out. So with that being said, the truck that if I had to regret buying my F-150 and go in a different direction and had the time to do it, that AT4X, it's a sharp looking truck. If I could have bought an AT4X for a similar price to what I bought my Powerboost, I think I would have won AT4X. So that is the brutal truth. And I just kind of want to make a video talking about some of these newer trucks. I think it's interesting. And the truck market it's going to be very competitive, and there's a lot of great product out there now. I don't think anybody is really that far off from being at the top tier of competitiveness. I don't think Toyota is going to do as well as they want to, though. That's my opinion. We'll see how well that ages. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. If this is your first time tuning in, please hit that subscribe button down below. Remember, likes go a long way to help support the channel. I'll see you guys next time.